Today, we will go to Chosin, 100 years ago. This time trip will be led by Franck. One day, a senior sighed.
If only I had a few thousands, I would make a trip around the world.
Franck observed.
I believe a man with a bit of energy and good health could start without money and make a journey around the globe.
And that became the seed of Franck's life as a vagabond. Franck was a famous travel writer in the United States. He had traveled around the world with almost nothing for almost a lifetime. After graduating from college, Franck went on a journey to travel the world on June 18, 1904, as he said. It was his original intention to attempt the journey without money. Instead, he decided to carry a kodak with $104. Franck had traveled to Europe, Egypt, the Middle East, India, and Japan for 15 months. After returning home on October 14, 1905, in 1910, he published his book A Vagabond Journey Around the World, illustrated with more than 100 photographs. As this book was sold well, he traveled to Latin America, South America, and the Andes. One after another, he published vagabonding series. Franck finally arrived in Busan, Korea, in the summer of 1923. Starting with the Hermit Kingdom, he planned to look around Manchuria and China. Unfortunately, there was no country named Chosin on the world map that Franck laid out at that time. Korean Peninsula was marked as Japan. Because in 1910, Chosin had already merged to Japan and so disappeared from the map. But Franck called the Korean Peninsula Korea. Although Chosin and Japan were only a few hours away by sea, these two countries were completely different. Perhaps the most outstanding feature of Korea, to Franck, is her treelessness. The first paragraph of Franck's verse was astounding.
This denuded aspect of the peninsula was emphasized by the blazing, cloudless sunshine that beat relentlessly down during all our first day of travel northward to the old capital. The barren sun-scorched landscape suggested some victim of barbarian cruelty, who, stripped of his garments, was being tortured to death by slow roasting.
I am very interested in the 23 photos of Chosin that he left in his book, Wandering in Northern China. Today, I see his photos, expecting that a 42-year-old American wanderer may leave a message to Koreans like me, now almost 100 years later. And some portraits of ordinary Korean and their life follow. Close-up of a Korean jiki-kun, or street port. A little oil paper umbrella that fits over his precious horsehair hat. Startlingly short waists of young mother with a full load. Franck asked, as a Korean was carrying something heavy.
Oh, what is that?
닭장사요.
Another Korean said simply. A man carries a huge bunch of trees.
Do you sell this tree?
Frank was surprised.
이건 나무가 아니라 소정기예요. 파는 게 아니에요.
No? Why don't cows carry heavy plows instead of you?
손은 열심히 일했으니 쉬어야죠.
Frank took a picture of the story of having a sleepy night in Korea. Frank, a wanderer and humanist, instead of Joseon's ruined palaces, he focused on the lives and nature of ordinary people. Examples were a hut where a farmer spends a summer night, a deep mountain still with trees, and a magnificent rock formation that can't fit in a picture frame. There are also pictures of Korean people's indigenous sentiments and beliefs. In the West, the church is the passage of the afterlife. However, he understood that shamans and temples play a role in Joseon. But something unusual is found in Frank's portraits taken 100 years ago. No matter how much you look for it, you can't find any Korean who smiles brightly. All are full of fear and suspicion of stranger, including foreign strangers. Why did they all lose their smile? Perhaps, in the minds of Joseon people who were deprived of their country by Japan, they were full of sore suspicions that there was no country to believe in, and terrible distrust of other nations. Frank's picture in Japan shows the American flag hanging from house to house. Why did Japanese people wear American flags in each house in 1905? As a matter of fact, the Taft-Kotshura Memorandum was signed in Tokyo on the morning of July 27, 1905. The meeting notes of the conversation between Prime Minister Kotshura and Secretary of War Taft included that the Japanese leader stated Japan's reasons for its making a protectorate of Korea. And he repeated that Japan had no interest in the Philippines. The U.S. had acquired the Philippines following its victory over Spain in the Spanish-American War. The memorandum was confidential, so nobody had noticed it until 1924 for 19 years. Backed by that agreement, Japan forced Joseon for Yulse Treaty to abort the diplomatic right of Joseon that year. 5 years later, on August 19, 1910, Japan took over Joseon. Frank's first photo was the picture of the Korean Empire's Hwanggyudan altar. Frank's note on this photo was a shock to me. In June 1920, just 1 year later of Mansi movement, and 10 years later after merge, Frank came to Korea. And he lamented the brutality of Japan as follows.
Our first view of Seoul, in which the former Temple of Heaven is now a smoking room, in a Japanese hotel garden, and is generously furnished with Japanese settees, and capacious cuspidors bearing the railway hotel insignia.
Frank witnessed on the night train from Wonsan to Seoul.
From end to end, train was half full of Japanese passengers, most of them stretched out on 2 double seats. And when, just before the train started, Korean passengers were admitted to the platform, there was little left for them to do but to squat on the floor, or the arm of a seat here and there, or stand up all night.
Frank also testified the cruelty of Japan on Koreans' Mansi movement in March 1919.
Women who had shouted Mansi were taken to police stations, stripped, and marched around, while the police amused themselves by burning them with cigarettes.
Frank took few pictures of the leader in Yangon who ruined the country, but their extravagant appearance. Instead, he showed only the barren and real lives of the ordinary and innocent Korean people. What did he mean? Korea is a small country between the huge Eurasian continent and the Pacific Oceans. For these geopolitical reasons, Korea was lost on the map at the expense of Japan's bridgehead for the expansion of the maritime power. The Japan-Korea Treaty of 1876, also known as Treaty of Ganghwa, was made between Japan and Korea. Article 1 stated that
Korea is a free nation, an independent state enjoying the same sovereign rights as does Japan.
And Japan had brought out wars of aggression against the continent of Asia and the United States of America, based on Korea. Japan lied even to the United States, who made a cooperative agreement. Now 100 years have passed. But still Japan flutters the rising sun flag and frequently scares South Korea, an independent country. Japan insists that Korea must keep the promises between nations.
韓国は重要な隣国であります。国際法に基づき、国との約束を遵守することを求めたいと思います。
What should we do? Yes, it's different now. By taking a geopolitical crisis, these things have a way of turning around. We are the hub of the universe. Then, what is the power to keep Korea's freedom and prosperity at peace? I see the answer of today in Franck's picture 100 years ago. At that time, all were full of fear and doubt on the face. Yangbans were enjoying with a bow, which was the weapon to protect the country. But ordinary people tried to survive. They bitterly endured and kept the land of Joseon to the end. The father worked hard in the rice fields and stayed up all night making clothes and selling chickens. The daughters of Joseon batted with all their strength. They washed and pounded it white. Franck was drawn to the chorus of boys. In a dirty and messy little room with flies swarming, neatly seated boys are eagerly reading along with the teacher. The moment I tried to cover Franck's collection of photos with my hot heart, I just reminded a single shot that passed by. And suddenly, this thought came to mind. Who brought Franck into this Joseon dynasty? In that tomb, our fathers of father, you are here with us, saying, I can hear children's sound of reading. I can hear the sound of the waves, on that sound. Yes, I hear the rolling sound of the wild waves.
We will make a ship of Joseon.
Then, I hear a loud shout, shouting as young men groan from children.
아직 신에게는 12척의 배가 남아 있사옵니다.
They were ordinary people and children who defended Joseon. It was a strong mother who kept Joseon. Now, the generals raised by those mothers are full here, in Korea. Korean youth leads the change of the world at the front. With two fists clenched, they shout and run for the future. Long live Korea!
거기 잠깐 타주거라 마루로 보자 아야리랑 스승이랑 네가